costs, congestions in the Manila ports. I think that deserves a roundtable discussion with the leaders of your group, with the Arrancada group. And we're looking at new locations for manufacturing that the private sector should develop, especially in the poorer regions, ideal for garments, shoes, and bags, where there has been renewed interest by investors. Many of these companies left us, and many of them want to come back. Of course, the electronic sector, the transport sector, which includes automotive, car parts, and shipbuilding, and even aerospace, are our expected growth areas. Definitely, the IT sector is growing and going up the technology ladder. Even while I'm very happy with the growth of our IT sector, because they hire a lot of our college graduates, we are now strongly pushing special attention to manufacturing and agri-industrial projects, because this is where our C, D, and E classes could get jobs, especially agri-industrial projects where even non-elementary graduates, as long as they have willing hands to work, could get jobs. And it is, ironically, these CDNI classes that have families of 10, 12 members. So if 2 of them could get jobs, perhaps they could send their younger siblings to college and bridge the poverty gap. To attain this, we will work very closely with the foreign chambers, the foreign embassies here, and our embassies abroad on aggressive investment missions. We have to go out there and tell the people that, hey, there's such a beautiful place to invest where you'll make money and see beautiful places, and it's more fun. It's the Philippines. So with your help, we cannot go wrong. I have been in this job for 19 years now, almost becoming a relic in PESA. And this wave, I can feel this wave, this time. The Philippines, this is our wave. If we miss out on this, we have only ourselves to blame. So this, ladies and gentlemen, are the positive thoughts I wish to share with you to set the key to this third Arrancada Forum. Thank you and good day.
Thank you, Director General de Lima. To introduce our next speaker, may we call back on stage the President of the Australia-New Zealand Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Mr. Ian Porter.
Thank you, Director General de Lima, not only for gracing us with your presence, but the pearls of wisdom. The thought we've all had is that wouldn't it be great if the whole of the Philippines was made into a PESA, and that exports were considered to be internal in the Philippines from one region or one province to another. If we had the Philippines as a big PESA, we'd be facing a very, very bright future. So please join with me in thanking the Director General very much for her kind words and her words of wisdom. Thank you. It's my honour and privilege next to introduce you to Brian Goldbeck, who's a very senior Foreign Service officer of the United States State Department. He's had a lot of experience. He served in too many countries for you to mention, but he's served in Beijing and Seoul and Ulaanbaatar and a whole lot of other places. He, as I suppose of relevance, great relevance to us, not only his experience of various countries, but he also served as the State Department representative or liaison officer with the World Bank. Immediately before coming here, Mr. Goldbeck was Consul General in Guangzhou, and he's been the Deputy Chief of Mission, as we call them in Australia, Deputy Head of Mission in the US Embassy here since August 2012. Brian, please welcome to the stage.
PESA Director General de Lima, presidents and members of the Joint Foreign Chambers and the Philippine business groups, government and media guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'd also like to welcome our friends who are watching this online from the United States. Good evening to you. I'm honored to make brief remarks today on behalf of Ambassador Philip Goldbeck, who is making his first visit ever to Cebu today, but he sends his regards and best wishes for your work on Arrancada. Regarding the previous speaker, I would just note here that this is a country that appreciates relics, and I would also observe that the Philippines economy and the 3,000 companies that are part of the PESA program appreciate her agility and her ability to dodge that kitchen sink. I'm privileged to be among this country's private sector leaders who are all united in advocating change for the betterment of the Philippines. The United States government shares the Philippines' determination in achieving broad-based and inclusive economic growth in the Philippines. Under the Bilateral Partnership for Growth program, we are working together to address the most binding constraints to the Philippines' growth and to put the country on an accelerated growth trajectory that benefits the majority of the Filipinos. The Partnership for Growth has 4 common goals. First, to create a more transparent, predictable, and consistent legal and regulatory regime, one that is less encumbered by corruption. Second, to foster a more open and competitive business environment with lower barriers to entry. Third, to strengthen the rule of law that is grounded in an efficient court system capable of delivering timely justice. You'll hear more on that from your keynote speaker today. And finally, fourth, to support fiscal stability through better revenue administration and expenditure management. The activity today is supported by one of the projects under the Partnership for Growth's wing, the Arrancada Philippines project, to which the United States contributes roughly $1 million jointly together with AmCham and the Joint Foreign Chambers. This 3rd annual forum of the Joint Foreign Chambers comes at an important time for the Philippines, and there is tremendous window of opportunity. As you know, the Philippines has achieved notable accomplishments under the transformative leadership of the Aquino administration. 2 successive years of strong economic growth have placed the Philippines for the first time as a growth leader in the ASEAN region. International competitive rankings are steadily improving. Sovereign debt is rated as investment grade for the first time. Inflation is mild and the exchange rate is competitive. Significant gains have been made in fighting corruption. Foreign direct investment has doubled over the last 2 years, but is still remarkably low. Record numbers of tourists visited the Philippines last year, proving that it is indeed more fun in the Philippines. Also, the continuing recovery of the external global environment bodes well for higher exports and more investment. Increasing numbers of inbound trade and investment missions, including from the United States, indicate that investors abroad are looking at the Philippines as a key business hub in the region. Yet the challenge to move forward steadily to achieve an upper middle income economy through accelerated, sustained, inclusive growth with reduced poverty is enormous. This can be done only with additional reforms. Each theme you have chosen for the annual Arcata Forum has been very timely, as Ian noted earlier. This year, the theme of more reforms equals more jobs reflects the imperative to achieve growth that is more inclusive. This theme could not be more relevant. Recent public discussions have noted that the growth in the economy has not generated the number and quality of jobs needed to significantly reduce poverty rates. To be more precise, gross domestic product, or GDP growth, was 7.2% in 2013, while unemployment was still above 7%. Underemployment was close to 20%, and 1 out of every 4 Filipinos lives in poverty. You'll be hearing a lot more today about growth, competitiveness, jobs, infrastructure, education, governance, and justice, including from Chief Justice Sereno and Economic Planning Secretary Balisayhan, with whom we have been working closely in implementing our Partnership for Growth projects. I'm sure your discussion will identify more reforms that over time can create even larger numbers of jobs. We are proud to be associated through the American Chamber of Commerce in supporting the research and publication of Arrancada in 2010 and its 3 annual assessments. Each of these 3 assessments show steady advancement in implementing the 470 recommendations in Arrancada. Together with the original Arrancada book, these documents support decisions and actions to transform the Philippines into a more inviting destination for local and foreign investors. We will continue to work with our government counterparts and the private sector to help the Philippines achieve its goal of generating growth that benefits all of its people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Goldbeck. To deliver the purpose of the workshop and to introduce the forum's agenda, please welcome the Senior Advisor to the Arrancada Philippines Project of the American Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, Mr. John Forbes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests. Mabuhay, magandang umaga, and welcome to the 3rd Arrancada Annual Forum. You might have noticed that your kit bag today was noticeably light compared to last year. When we published Arrancada, it weighed 1.5 kilograms, and we're in the process of publishing a document today that'll weigh about the same. It's 319 pages. If I get it here today, it'd be literally hot off the press. I don't know if we're even going to make it for the press conference. And I regret that if we don't get it to you today, because it has all the results, all of the assessment of the 27 sectors. We will work a way of getting it to you. It is already up electronically on our website. The second announcement I will have is a program change, and I think Minister Goldbeck has just left, but we were called late last night and informed that the Chief Justice was quite ill. You may have seen that in the newspapers this morning, and is unable to be with us today or even to forward her speech. So we will collapse a bit of the program accordingly to fill in that time. And we've already invited her to be here on February 26th of 2015, which is a Thursday. Mark your calendar, please. If the slides would move as I talk, that would be good. Next slide, please. So I've already talked a little bit about what is the purpose of the program today. It is our 3rd anniversary, and we are releasing imminently the 3rd assessment, and I'll tell you the main results of that shortly. And of course, we have brought together over 20 public and private sector experts today who can talk and energize, as you heard Mr. Porter and Director General de Lima speak about the reforms that are ongoing and the challenges ahead. If you're not familiar with Arrancada itself, while we've run out of copies, it is available on the website, and you can download it, print it out. It costs about 400 pesos to get a bound copy made at your local store. Next slide. This is an interactive forum. You can text your questions there. You can tweet them. We were on the hashtag last year, the highest this morning, so please tweet away, tweeters. And live discussion in the open forum. I already see one distinguished moderator, Coco Quaz, will get our next panel going shortly. Facebook, email, and a handwritten note, the old-fashioned way. Send it to me. I love notes. Next slide. You have the program. Please consult that for the schedule this morning. But in quick outline, the program follows the way Arrancada and the assessment are organized. We had said when we wrote it in 2010 the economy was growing too slow, which it was at 4% a year over more than a decade. And we said it could become more competitive. Next slide. And we talked about high job creating sectors, which we call the big winners sectors. And we're talking about part of that today, not all of it, it's too much. but we'll focus on agribusiness, manufacturing, and tourism. And then we talked about the enabling environment that surrounds business success to make them grow stronger. And that's the long section that we will talk about justice, education, and governance with distinguished panelists later. Then we'll go back. We set it up that way because we wanted to follow the Chief Justice with the topic of justice. Then we go back to a long section, there's 100 pages in Arancata on infrastructure. Every kind of infrastructure you can imagine is covered. And with Maria Ressa as moderator, we will, and with Secretary Singson of Public Works, who's been very successful, we'll have a discussion on infrastructure. And then we will end the day. We had hoped the President will come. There's a very nice message on the first page of the program from the President, and he's off to Malaysia, as you may know, and hopefully there will be some excellent news from that diplomatic mission in respect to the situation in Mindanao, which is very critical to investment in the country as a whole, and particularly in those poorer provinces in the Bangsamoro region. That will conclude the program. I hope these slides are going behind me because I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I just want to mention some of the activities that we've been doing in Arancata. In the last 3 years, we've had over 150 dialogue meetings. We have a very active online presence with visits from 85,000 unique visitors from 169 countries in 30 months. We've been running some workshops, and those workshops have produced 2 policy briefs so far on manufacturing and legislation. We're active, a number of us in the Joint Foreign Chambers and the working groups of the National Competitiveness Council, and we cooperate with many Philippine business groups. And I should recognize MAP, PCCI, PhilExport, MBC, the Construction Association, and I hope I didn't leave anybody out, who have taken tables today. Thank you very, very much for your partnership. And we've released, well, 2 assessments and imminently the 3rd assessment. And we produced news clips. You can go to the website and get several editions, 2, 3, 4 editions of news clips a day. I see a former U.S. ambassador sitting here who always lives in Washington, D.C., is Latin America a lot, and he always tells me he follows the Philippines from the news clips. They're very good, and they're free. Now, let me put up a couple of quick slides. Rather remarkable, the first one, under growing too slow. There should be a red dot. I can't find the red dot. Maybe I can't work this. In any event, okay, let me tell you what this does. If you look at the last 3 years, 2010 to 2013, the red is the Philippines in each of these bars, and this is the growth over previous decades, starting in 1960, which was 53 years ago. The Philippines was always behind Singapore and Vietnam and other higher. Believe it or not, that red line is ahead of Indonesia. The Philippines is now the fastest growing of the ASEAN 6 economies. Next slide. And this shows the same for 2013, the 7.2%. And again, the Philippines in the previous decades, this only goes back to 1990, was below the others. Then it sort of caught up in the middle, and now it's gone ahead. We haven't put the data for the other 5 for 2013, but the Philippines, believe me, is ahead. Next slide. This point has been made today by many. I have not added, didn't have time to put 2013 FDI in. It is up to an estimated 4.1 billion. It has doubled in the last 2 years. And I think that sort of momentum that Lilia de Lima, Director General de Lima, is speaking about, and what the JFCs are talking about in Arancata, is going to move it above 4 billion this year and try to get it up to what we originally targeted in Arancata of 7.5 billion a year over a decade. Next slide. and the jobs and the government revenue that comes from that higher level of foreign investment. Next slide. This is a complicated slide. It is in the assessment, but it essentially looks at 15 different competitiveness ratings of the country going back to 2008. I won't take you through it now. You'll eventually see it. I think you should study it. It's summarized in the next slide, which was done by Mr. Pimentel and my staff. And it's rather remarkable to see it this way, because the red represents a decrease, and the green an improvement. In the 2013 column, you'll see a totally different situation of among these 9 of the 15 competitiveness rankings that we have covered here have improved last year, in contrast to 2009, when 10 had deteriorated. This is World Economic Forum, IMD, GCI, Global Corruption, Doing Business. It is a real trend line, and we will have a speech shortly from Bill Luce, which will give you much more detail about how this is being done and where it's moving. Next, please. I've already stated that. This is just the outline of Arancada. The big winner sectors, the 7 of them, the subsectors for infrastructure, they are in the assessment when you get it. Next. And then what I was talking about of the business environment, several of which we will speak today, that nurture the growth of the big winner sectors. Next slide. Next slide. This summarized where we're going, 2011, 2012, 2013, and you can see the blue and the green and the light green are all positive. These are reforms that are moving ahead, and the reddish area is not moving. And so you can see in 2011, when we first presented the assessment, is 51% moving ahead. Last year, it was 65%, and here's the number the media is waiting for. It's 73% positive, and by residually, it's 27%. That will be that is from the assessment. Next slide, please. This presents it in a different way, with the last year in the right-hand columns and the 2 previous years to the left of that. The rating system we use, and a number of the assessors are here with us today, is completed, substantial progress, and started, and then not ongoing and backward regression. I think a lot of you who are veterans of this understand that quite well. This is the way we measure the 462 recommendations in the original Arancada. Next slide. Same information, active. Well, this is another way of looking at it. The red would be dormant, not moving. It was about 50-50 the first year, and you see it's now moved to a quite different ratio, closer to 75%. So we're going in the right direction. The challenges still remain to go faster and to eliminate the red. Next slide. This is just, you'll see in the assessment later, that this appears for each of the 21 sections. And again, you have this green moving and red not moving. This happens to be seaports. There was a reference from Director General de Lima to problems with logistics. There are big problems with logistics, and big problems with seaports. Next slide. This shows an example of the issue we had with collection of quarantine and overtime, which started the first year, big progress the second year, and then when it was completely reformed, it's completed. It's a pattern we'd like to see happen across the board. Some of them will never be completed, like K+12, perhaps for a decade. They're massively ambitious reforms, but they've been started, and that's very important. Next slide, please. Let me move to tell you, and then I'll be finished, what we did with the 500 pesos that each of you contributed, except for our guests, but we'll take voluntary contributions from the guests if they would like. We raised about 150,000 pesos, and that's enough to have sent last week and delivered to these school children in a town in Bohol where the temporary classrooms have been reconstructed, you see in the back, school supplies. And that's the executive director of AmCham delivering them last Thursday in Bohol. The next slide turns to fishing boats. We've circled 2 towns south of Tacloban. We have enough funds for 3 fishing boats. We also have representatives here of AmCham Foundation, who I hope are coming forward to the stage so I can mention their names here in a moment. Lily and June, as well as Daniel and Mildred. The boats you see over here are made from fiberglass here in Taguig. We have put Arrancada 1 on one of the boats. More boats will go to these towns that are fiberglass, and they will be further assembled there with a motor. As you probably know, over 30,000 fishing boats were destroyed during Yolanda. By the way, in Bohol, there were over 1,100 classrooms destroyed. The town of Dulag is where MacArthur's 24th Corps landed in October of 1944. And so 60 years later, approximately, Yolanda hit. There were 48,000 people living in the town, and there were only 26 casualties because the mayor and the barangay captains had effectively evacuated the people from the coast. But 8,000 homes were totally destroyed, and the fishermen obviously lost all of their boats. So we have a wooden boat waiting to be transported down there now. So if there are additional donations that anybody is interested in, there is an AmCham Foundation booth outside. And let me just thank Lily and Mildred Kay, who's the daughter of the mayor of Dulag, and Daniel and June. And that concludes my presentation. We'll get a photograph here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Forbes. And now to present the Arrancada Lifetime Achievement Award, may we call on the President of the Philippine Association of Multinational Companies, Regional Headquarters, Mr. Shamim Kurashi.